Okay, hey everybody. My name is Nate Clark. I'm online at Nathan Colgate. I work here in town at a small dev shop called Brand New Box. And I'm here to talk to you today about MD5 Records. The backstory on this is we supported a client for 12 years and then he sold the business and retired. And we got done and we were like, congratulations, what do we have to show for those 12 years? I mean, hundreds of thousands of dollars in support. We didn't have a thing to give the guy. But he was in the music space and we had this kind of epiphany of like, my team had written 13,000 commits over the course of 12 years into his software project. And it's, commits are time-based and stuff like that. And I was like, what if we could turn his Git commits into music? And so he turned music into computers. We did the opposite. So we wrote an algorithm, little script that takes your Git commit. This is my Git commit tree out of VS Code. And if you look at it sideways, it kind of has this like musical notation to it. And so we used the timing and who was making the commit. And we used a script to turn that into something that drives a modular synthesizer, which if you haven't played with the library's modular synthesizer, you are missing out. It's amazing. And then we found a guy in Jersey who will etch that into a lathe record. So everybody wants to know what it looks like. This is what it looks like. It looks like a record, is what it looks like. It sounds, let's see. It sounds a little, it's not an amazing sound. It's not going to change your life, but it doesn't sound bad. So each one of these is kind of an event. It's a commit on a track. Depending on who wrote it is the tone. What the SHA was is going to be like the attack and release. And it's music. And so when things get quiet, I think there's a quiet section on here where like, maybe like in the summer of 2018, they didn't have the money to fund us. And so it's like, it gets a little bit quieter. But then there was a big release and everybody did a lot of stuff and the music gets intense. It makes this record. And that's great, but that's not the point. The point of this is that like, oh, that's the front. The point of it is that we gave it to him in like this framed box. I'll just go over here and show you the framed box. And it's like this became a vinyl record of all the work we did for him. So this is the back of the record. That other thing was the front. That's the front. And Sean actually likes it presented this way because on the back it has like, all right, Will has made 4,739 commits from January 13 of 2015 to November 1st. And here's everybody on my team that ever worked on this project, all the way down to, I'm down at the bottom somewhere. I'm in the middle. 88 commits from September 3rd, 2014 to November 29th, 2022. This hangs on his wall because after 12 years of making a digital product, this is the only thing he really has to show for it anymore. Sure, the digital product is still online, but like this is the representation of all that work that we did for him. So everybody on my team loved it, and I ended up getting everybody on my team their own copy, so they have copies of it, and they're proud of their copy because their name's on the back, and they did it. So anyways, it was such a hit, I turned it into a product. So there was the hack, what was the thing called? The Startup Weekend. Launchpad Weekend. Just kind of sat down and said like, I am going to use this time to discipline myself to make a website out of this. So I launched MD5 Records. Jamie Glassman came up with the catchline of a vinyl record of your digital creativity. I think it's freaking brilliant. The market for it is really like project managers who oversee digital teams, and they want to create a sense of belonging. Part of this is like, in most other industries, you have something to show for your work. You work with your hands, something comes out of your hands, you get to point to it and say, I was part of that. In the digital world, we can do it kind of, but like maybe you have to be online and maybe you have to have a computer pulled up and you probably have to have internet access. Worst case scenario, it's like air gapped behind something in an AWS data center in Norfolk, and it's like you can go point at a concrete building and say, I did a thing, it lives inside there, but that's the best I can come up with. But this is like a relatively anonymous but very unique fingerprint of the work. So corporate prems that are looking for like team building things like, hey, how do I get my team to have a sense of belonging? How can I make them all feel like they're part of something bigger? Individual software engineers. The XKCD comic about that one guy in Nebraska whose library is holding up half the internet, that dude deserves one of these things or something like that, of like, hey, this represents a lot of work that does a lot of things for people. For me, I use it as a software consultant. We give these as gifts to clients. And then I think there's a real market niche for like startup Y Combinator people who like, hey, you launched a thing, congratulations, maybe you sold it, maybe you moved on from it, but here's a record of that thing that you made that you can hang on your wall and talk to your grandkids about. Like, as dumb as that sounds, most of our software only lasts 10 years before it kind of dies out. Maybe RPG is really crushing that right there, but most of my software is about 10 years long, 10 years old before it kind of gets too old. The life cycles run out. And this is just a way to remember it past that. So the demo, this is my favorite part. We're going to do a live demo here. This is the website, MD5 Records. But what I'd like to start with is, does anybody have a GitHub public open source repo that they use a lot that's been around for maybe 10 years?
Trying to think of all of them.
Yeah, just name, you know, .NET's probably too big for right now, but.
Node stuff's too big. What's a good small library? I bet you know one.
I don't. I came here hoping there would be, you know, like a whole like cacophony of people yelling ideas at me. Do you have a public GitHub repo?
JPSOWERS.
JPSOWERS. Oh, okay. And then do you have a repo?
There's several in there, I think.
Okay, github.com, JP Sowers. Hey, look, that's you. Sweet.
There's a tiny one. Do like a working app in WebNode or something like that.
Working app in
A
WebNode.
little cute thing.
Yeah. This will be, I kind of want something with like about 1,000 commits. No offense.
Yeah, no stress. Those are all private. Just steal like Abbott Web probably has that.
Abbott Web?
It's right there.
Okay. One commit.
Never mind.
Do you have, like, it doesn't have to be a particular person?
No, anybody.
Mozilla probably has some good ones.
GitHub, Mozilla. Just something that we use. Mozilla on GitHub, and let's look at deep speech. Yes, perfect. Okay, this has 3,500 commits, right? And so this is easy because it's open source. We replace GitHub with MD5 Records. And so what the platform does is it like uses the GitHub API, immediately pulls it in. In the background, it's cloning the repository and like running the thing that it's supposed to do it. So that by the time I refresh the screen, we've got all of its metadata, and we can start designing our own Mozilla deep speech vinyl record. If you have a private repository that's not public on GitHub, there's a git log command that you can run that gives you the exact same CSV that just did, but it anonymizes everything, so that way it doesn't have to be public. So anyways, this is deep speech, and so you can come in and say, like, this is my deep speech record here. The music style, I'm not going to get into that, but deep speech seems like a green kind of record. On the front, I have a handful of pre-designed record templates. So this is like your GitHub contribution graph, but spelled out for, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years that this one has been running. There's another one that I really like called Joy Division. And so Joy Division, I don't know if you know the Joy Division record, it's black with these like white mountain peaks on it. It does the exact same thing, but these mountain peaks are your Git activity week over week. So this is 5-year weeks, and each one of those represents how much activity you did during that week. So on the back, you can come up with a template. This is the one that I showed on the back of this one. It does a table. You can upload your own images. You can customize this however you want. Same with the center label, same with the settings, and then you just get to check out and add it to your cart. So I then have that downloaded, run it through a modular synthesizer, ship it off to a guy in Jersey, and it gets delivered like 5 weeks later or something like that. So that is MD5 Records. It's a total hoot as far as I'm concerned. And the fun thing, questions. Stack. All right, this kind of came up last time. A lot of people on the dev side want to know like how I did it. I use Stripe Atlas for incorporation. If you ever have to start your own business, highly recommend. Best $500 ever. I run all this on a DigitalOcean VPS at $12 a month. I use a DigitalOcean database for $15 a month because I can't stand the idea of like losing my data. I'm a Ruby on Rails guy, so I love that. I use Kamal for deploy, which is an amazing platform for deploying like Docker style stuff into a bare bones VPS. All my payments are handled by Stripe. I paid $30 for like a Daisy UI template, which drove the design for everything. I use AWS S3. I have one private, one public bucket right now that costs nothing. All the stuff where you saw like the dynamic renderings of the album front, and the album back, and the inside, and a few other things that I do is all done by using like Phantom.js DOM. It's like a headless browser that captures a screenshot of the page. So all of my designs are written in HTML, captures an image. Currently, I'm paying 0 cents for that. I use SendGrid for email. I use IP2 location for data analytics of like who's visiting the website. Obviously, the GitHub API you saw. I filed a provisional patent for some really obscurely long name about temporal translation of time series data into sonification. I use ChatGPT for marketing, legal, and ideation. ChatGPT, for those of you that use it, ChatGPT has a very good idea about this website, and I can ask it for like marketing content and be like, hey, design the, I don't know, like all the text on the homepage of like, help me write all these things for these different markets. Like, it just understands the concept enough and it can generate the content for me because I hate marketing. So ChatGPT has done a great job of helping me out in that area. Yeah, and that is my fun little side hustle when I don't do consulting work. I run a record label. So, any questions? Get nerdy?
It's lovely.
Thanks. It's a lot of fun. It's definitely not what I do during my day job. It's like a total left brain, right brain. Making physical products for people is really fun. So. Anyways, everybody should be learning Ruby on Rails. Like for like the solopreneur to be able to, I had a proof of concept on the hack day, like the launchpad day, that was like close enough. But then 3 weeks of nights and weekends pretty much got me to this. So right now it's just marketing and sales, trying to figure out how to get this in front of more people. I'm sending free records to kind of like what I would consider tech influencers, and just being like, hey, you've contributed and you did a huge thing and you have a huge internet following. Here's a record. Thank you for all of your work in the tech space, which is the hope that maybe one of them will kind of snap a selfie and throw it on Instagram or something like that. But yeah, that's MD5 Records.
Brilliant.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Right on. Hi, I'm Jim Sowers. I'm going to talk about teaching a Girls Who Code class. I'm a Girls Who Code facilitator. Who I am a .NET coder. I've been coding for my beans since 2000. Before that, I did several other things. I ran a construction company, but I started coding at Benedictine College when I was 10 or 11. And one of the monks gave me a guest account on the mainframe, and I started writing Zork-like adventure games in BASIC. I went through the VIC-20 Commodore 64 phase, and then I met girls, and I came back to tech in 2000. I teach girls, or I facilitate with the librarian at Cordley Public School. We teach a Girls Who Code class for 3rd through 5th grade girls, and we are on our 2nd year and 3rd cohort, and it's really fantastic. If you want to do that, like every school could have one, and I have a friend who's trying to start facilitating one at Central for the older kids. I think at that age, I've been stunned by what the girls can do, even the 3rd graders. I think I'm sure a couple junior high girls could make a saleable product by the end of the year. Absolutely. Pardon me. Technical notes. So Girls Who Code is a national organization. It is lovely in that if you want to get started, I almost did it here with Jenny Cook. We were going to do one here and we got it approved, but it's a bit too much work to do without somebody. So you have to have a public library or a school, someplace for a sponsor, and it has to go through some checks. And then for me to be a facilitator, they actually ran me through true background checks. Like I had to fill out lots of forms and wait. Which I appreciate, right? That's great. The lovely thing about Girls Who Code, so I looked into Black Girls Code, I looked into several of the different organizations, but Girls Who Code had the best curricula to get started if you're doing this as a side gig and don't have time to write a curricula and figure it all out. So they give you this lovely website. There are videos and trainings. It's very professional. I think they give us $300 or $500 a year on an Amazon cart, like a free Amazon cart for our club. They send all the girls and the facilitators who show up a free t-shirt, and then they give us this cart that we buy snacks and things. So the way we run a class is you come in, everybody gets a snack and sits. So we do it right at the end of the school day. So you get out of class, you're tired and amped. You come in and we sit down, you have a snack. We read something. There's a great kids book about Grace Hopper. There's a lot of things about women who started Lovage, all these, or Ada Lovelace, all these great women who started in tech, and we're like the first coders. We'll read a little bit about some strong woman in tech. If we can get someone to come speak, a woman who's in tech, we'll get students from KU who are in the Girls Coding Club. They'll come speak. We had Elizabeth Christensen come speak about databases. We'll do that, and then everything is set up to use Scratch, which I don't know if you played with Scratch. It's an MIT project, and I didn't realize it's nearly Turing complete, right? And so they give you a little video that you can show and a project idea. The cohort we have are way too smart for it's like, hey, draw something and make it say a word. These girls are way too smart. But we start there, and then we just add complexity onto it. But I like Scratch because it's got variables. It has conditionals and looping. It has functions. And then it's got a a publish subscribe concept. So you can say, when this happens, I'm going to send this message and everyone can listen for that and subscribe to that, like a service bus kind of thought. By the end of the first cohort, we did a little game design concepts along with this. And then we had an arcade. So the last day was an arcade, and all the parents came, and they're doing this on iPads with keyboards. And we set them around 2 tables, and all the parents came and went around and ate snacks and played everybody as video games. And one of the girls had this beautiful background and this unicorn that would fart rainbows to kill bread loaves that were trying to kill it. And it was keeping score, and it was moving around. It was doing pursuit and collision and edge detection. Like, it was brilliant. They were so creative, and they were all really fun. And so I'm really digging it. And I know other people might want to do that. If you want to do that, talk to me. You can find out, or you can just go to the Girls Who Code website. It's like perfectly great. They have great onboarding, and if you start, they have lots of like, hey, learn to be a facilitator trainings, and a lot of that kinds of things. And if the room was full, I was going to tell everybody, if you want to lean in and help, you can always bring a box of snacks to the quarterly front desk and say it's for the Girls Who Code Club, that kind of thing. But that's all I was going to talk about, is Girls Who Code. I've been doing it for 2.5 years, and it's just lovely.
Yeah, Scratch is fantastic.
I didn't realize how, I played with it a long time ago, and what was the one with the turtle before Scratch? Remember?
Turtle.
Was it pen down,
Yeah,
move
yeah.
10, it would draw a line?
Yeah.
Scratch is so much more elegant and powerful. I've seen someone has ported Minecraft completely, a level, like a section of Minecraft, to Scratch. If you go say best Scratch games, you'll just be like overwhelmed by how powerful what people are doing. And I don't know, it's got a small sandbox. That's why it's not Turing complete. You're going to run out of memory. But it's lovely. And teaching this it's been super. We're in our 3rd cohort now, and we'll keep doing it as long as the librarian and I can hold up.
What are the ages of the girls?
So ours are 3rd grade through 5th grade. So that's the first Girls Who Code cohort set. And then there's lots of books. There's lots of stuff that is social stuff books. There's like fiction books that are fun for kids, for girls to read about this. Stories about friends who are coding. As well as the technical stuff, but they go all the way through high school with the built-up curricula. We do that, and then we have a few varied small robots, because there's a lot of robots that have it's the Scratch interface, it's a block coding construct. And there's a new app called App Inventor, which we might start using. It gives you full access to like an iPhone to all the sensors and everything on the phone, but we'd have to have a bunch of dead phones without SIM cards. So that's something we're looking into. But it's lovely. So you code on the app, and it draws a QR code, and then you just zap it with your phone, and then you can use the app that you wrote. It's pretty amazing. It's an MIT. It's an outgrowth of Scratch. So anyway, that's my fun thing for the day.
What's the formation of a cohort? Does that mean they...
I just mean it's a set of girls who comes to one session for a year.
Okay.
Yeah, or we do it in kind of semesters. And ours, we started out, the first one we did, the first one, we only had 6 girls because we didn't know what we were getting into. And then the word got out and we had like 20 girls. And we have about that then, and we're at the point where we kind of have to turn people away because we don't have enough nerds. The librarian's not a coder. We get teachers who come help. The best trick that we have found this year, because we have like 25, it's a big cohort, the National Honor Society kids at the high school have to have service hours. And there's a bunch of them that are in tech. So we have like 6 of them who come now. And that's wonderful. So it's like these brilliant, involved women, like 16 to 18, and they show up, and because I can't get to every question at every table. But it's lovely.
Thanks, Jim. Thanks, Mike. There you go. Thank you.
Hi there, my name is Trevor Beurman. I have experience with the KU Innovation Park launchpad that they did with Douglas County Core as well as Hack Doco over it's been like 2 months now? I think it was, probably should have remembered the dates before I came up here, but it was a weekend in October that we did that. And one of the things that I've experienced, it was my first hackathon. I've never done it before. And so I worked with this company in Lawrence called STATSdraft that is currently working on a fantasy app. And after the experience we had, we've continued to work together on some things as well as bug fixes. But essentially what I did there, along with my friend Braden, who I brought in, we decided to scale up a mobile app a web-based app to essentially be able to emulate the functionality that they currently have on a smaller scale in terms of being able to present a product for the hackathon. And since it was my first hackathon, there were a lot of things that were really something that I wasn't necessarily prepared for because I had never been to a hackathon before. And one of the main things I would say, the best advice, is being able to prepare efficiently, because a lot of times you really don't know where you're going in and how you're going to jump in and start things. And a lot of times, especially with this current event where it was more involved with the entrepreneurs and the developers, you had to get a grasp of the idea before you really dug into it as developers, because you're working with non-technical people that have more of a business side that want to accomplish something in this weekend that is beneficial for their business, along with the presentation we did. So you really had to scale back the ideas but still present something that was sufficient and brought new functionality to where it's discoverable for the business, to where they can essentially say, hey, we did something this weekend that we normally wouldn't have done in normal operations, and we can potentially expand on this for our own product's sake. So one of the main things we did a simulated application. StatsDraft, essentially, what it does is it's fantasy football in fantasy sports, but with stats instead of players. You draft stats. So essentially you can have first downs, passing touchdowns, up or down, and the up means that the winning team is going to have more first downs. The winning team is going to have more passing touchdowns. The winning team is going to have more QB hurries. And the winning team is going to have less turnovers, just as an example from this picture here on their website. So essentially one of the main things we wanted to do with this application we built within the weekend was to be able to have a more simulated game where we could have people learn the game before they download the app, because downloading the app is a step in of itself. It's where you essentially make a commitment to that developer or that company that, hey, I'm downloading your app, I'm creating an account, I'm going to be signing into your app. And so essentially, this was a web browser-based game that you could play in a web-based simulation where you don't have to log in. You don't have to essentially put your personal information in an app or web-based, this web-based game, because you're just learning. And so we used React, which I had never used before, but I brought in my buddy Braden, who had experience with React, to essentially kind of jump off on a starting point there, because they had their app coded in React and we wanted to not deviate from that so it could be more familiar. And the whole goal was to essentially have ChatGPT integrated games where we could essentially have AI simulated games between teams. And these teams were like 1968 KU team or the 2013 Chiefs team. You know, you could essentially do anything and tell ChatGPT, hey, give me a simulated stat line for these games, 1968 KU versus 2013 Chiefs, or 1999 Kansas State versus 1968 KU football team. Give me the stat line. And unfortunately, because it was such a quick weekend, we couldn't do the API integration. So I essentially just told ChatGPT to serve it up in JSON. So we could essentially have that data present in the app so that we don't have to sign up for the API calls, because it's a sign up process where you also have to pay money as well. But we could still use it to leverage it and have it in the app so we could have these simulated games where people could learn how they scored, how they played, and then repeat the process to see how they can leverage their drafting of the stats to win and beat these other AI assisted teams we had in this game. So the lessons I learned essentially was, when you only have a weekend, you really need to focus on the important things, because when you try and have your goal as a generalization and have it too broad, you get to the point where you are essentially trying to focus on trying to solve too many problems, where you're trying to impress these pitch people that serve up they're judging your ideas, and you're trying to impress them. You're not trying to impress your own personal instance. You're trying to impress the people in front of you. So you're trying to give a minimum viable product that is presentable to the judge committee, that is short and sweet and to the point, because if you go way too far, like we could have spent the time to go after ChatGPT and get these API calls integrated, but unfortunately that would have taken way too much time. We could have essentially done a mobile app where we could have gone through all the steps to getting it on either in a simulated environment with iOS and Android, or even on the App Store, but that's way too much time to spend on a weekend. Trying to get to the core point of the problem was having these AI assisted games. So with the work we did with STATSdraft, a lot of things we learned was that sometimes you have to cut corners a little bit, and you have to be able to experiment with certain attributes of the app to essentially get things to work. You know, there were a lot of things that me and my buddy Braden, we decided, you know what, we're spending way too much time on this when we have X, Y, and Z to do, and we really need to take a step forward. And so some of the code, like say we were stuck on a problem, we actually would use ChatGPT to help us a little bit and say, hey, like we're stuck on this issue with the app, you know, formatting this, or, you know, this little piece of code that's just not working quite right. We're spending way too much time on it, and it would help us get to the point where we could have a solution and got the app up and ready for that presentation, essentially. So my recommendation for anyone going into a hackathon was prepare as much as possible. You really want to be able to do this within a weekend and within an allotted time frame, because there's no do-overs, and you've got a set time frame and you can't go over and do it again. And realize when you're spending too much time on a certain issue and it's not going through correctly, or you know, you're spending too much time on something that could be fixed or could be could be done easier. It could essentially, if you go to this one solution, you know, maybe it's really cool you figured out how to fix this problem, but did it really get you to the end result of the presentation you have in front of the judges? Maybe not. So kind of move on from that, maybe revisit it if you have to, and just keep moving forward with the end goal of where you need to be, because ultimately you have to have a presentation at the end of the hackathon. And so if you don't have that, you don't really qualify to be able to showcase a product. So it's fast paced, but you learn a lot, because even in my own work I do at my corporate job, it's essentially you're never in that as fast pace of a project as a hackathon would give you, because hackathons are really pushing you to your limits and pushing you to the point where you're trying to solve problems on the fly with the collaboration you have in the room, and you've got a limited amount of space and a limited amount of time, and you just got to tackle it as best as you can. So that would be my advice if you were to go to a hackathon yourself. And I really appreciate the STATSdraft team, as well as the current work I do with them, with their help they've given me and the opportunity they've given me to work with them. And it was a great experience, and I would highly recommend, if you have the opportunity to do any more events that HackDoco or Douglas County Core will have, definitely look into those.